Welcome to the Shootin' podcast. The podcast that's harder than your competition cooker and your first wife. We'll be talking barbecue and more with one of the top pitmasters in the game. Get ready for juicy tips, saucy tricks, and sizzling stories that'll leave you hungry for more. Let's start shooting the Q. Here's your host, Heath Riles.
How's it going, everybody? Today, we're joined by my lovely wife, Candace, and, of course, our good friend, Cary Chasteen out of Georgia. Cary, how are you today?
Doing well. Enjoying this lovely spring weather.
Hey, well, it could be a lot worse. I think we're going to get a little rain tomorrow.
Going by Saturday, we're good.
That's right. Well, tell everybody who you are and how you got into barbecue.
Cary Chasteen with Hold Your Horses Barbecue. Started cooking a local contest in town and cooked it for 2 years and didn't do real well and decided if I was going to, I needed to learn something and get better at it. And went back the next year and beat the first instructor I had. And then I went to one of your classes, and the rest is kind of gone down the road.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. What do you do outside of barbecue?
Well, I ran a trucking company for 35 years, and now I'm just barbecuing.
So you're barbecuing full-time now, just retired, I guess, and just barbecuing full-time?
Pretty much, until the funds run out, and then we'll do something else.
But I have questions. So what made you just say, I want to go barbecue? Was there something that happened?
I enjoyed it.
Anybody you knew, somebody you knew got you in it, or just thought you wanted to try it?
My nephew had cooked a contest in Thomaston, Georgia, Smoke on the Water, and he got me to come help him. And the next year, he wanted me to go cook it, and we kind of had a $100 bet who would finish better, and I beat him and kind of went from there.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. And what nephew was that?
Doug Maslin, that cooked with me for a couple of years.
And that's what I was thinking. I didn't know if he was your nephew, but I'd met Doug before when I'd come to Georgia several times. Seemed like a really, really genuine guy.
Oh, yeah. Great guy. Miss him now. But since he got married, that was into his cooking.
Well, Cary, that happens to a few of them old boys, you know.
And now they're fixing to have their first child. So.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, our little one here has slowed me down a little bit that we just had. I'm not running the road, which, that brings it up. How many contests are you going to cook this year?
Between 30 and 40.
See, and that's what I was about to say. When I was cooking between 30 and 40, well, you didn't go most of those. You went to, I'm going to say, maybe half, around here. You didn't run all the way up with me and everywhere when I run out and gone. But it was, it's a long, hard road. That many contests, so many weeks a year.
I came from North Carolina straight here. I haven't even been home this week.
Oh, wow.
And you had to pass that way to get here, right?
No.
You just come down
I
around.
just came straight across I-40.
Well,
so I'm really hoping that meat arrives tomorrow like it's supposed to. I have never gone to a contest with an empty cooler.
Uh-oh.
Well, I hope it does arrive tomorrow. So for everybody, Cary's ordered meat and shipped to my house here to come into town. And right now UPS has delayed the delivery again today. So if not, I guess we're going to be getting in my freezer and getting the private stash out, the Heath Riles Reserve, and letting Cary have it for the weekend. And so you used to run a trucking company outside of barbecue and all. Anything else, any other hobbies or anything like that y'all enjoy doing?
Well, my wife shows horses very competitively all over the country. And I still try to go to some of those with her. And occasionally she gets to go to some of the bigger contests with me.
I assume that's where the team name came from, or something different.
Actually, that came from my great-grandmother.
Oh.
She was in her 90s when I was a kid. And growing up on Sundays, we would go to her house for dinner after church. And she'd always be standing in the front window of the kitchen in a big bread flour chest. She had a big bread bowl. And she'd be working on making cornbread or hoe cake or something. And you'd run through the kitchen and ask Mama when dinner would be ready. And she'd always tell us to hold your horses. You can't rush perfection. So
sure.
That's where it came from.
Gotcha.
I think a lot of older people use that term before, hold your horses. Now that you're thinking that, I can remember my grandmother saying that, hold your horses.
Exactly.
Hold up a minute. Let's just
settle down.
Settle down. Hold off just a second. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was, you didn't mess with the older ladies in the kitchen back then either.
No.
You get smacked. And my grandmother didn't want you coming in there trying to snack before it was time to eat.
No.
She did not go for that.
My mom's that way now.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and it's kind of good because as a cook ourselves, do you snack while you're eating sometimes at home?
Occasionally.
I
Depends
mean,
on what I'm fixing.
Us too.
If it's fried okra, yeah, I'll start popping some okra.
It's hard not to do it on hot, fresh fried okra. But it's the same way we're terrible, I'd say, when we're grating cheese for a salad or,
Oh, yeah.
or you know, anything. You got to taste the cheese. You got to, you know, anything you're cutting up, anything like that. But, yeah, my grandmother, she didn't believe in that either. And I'm sure your grandmother was like mine. It was always going to be biscuits or cornbread at every meal, some form or fashion,
Well,
3 times a day.
way.
Yeah, they don't make them like they used to. These young ones, you know, they don't get in there and bake them biscuits and cornbread. But I don't need it either.
Well, after 32 years, my wife has finally discovered how to make cheese biscuits.
Really?
Yeah. She makes pretty good drop cheese biscuit.
Them good old drop biscuits. Good. You like drop biscuits, don't you, honey?
I do. I like them when France makes them.
When France makes them.
Yeah,
He makes a really good one.
he does.
You know, talking about food, what's some of the best foods you've had while traveling for barbecue? I ask every cook that because everybody's got different answers. Or should I say, what? Because you go back to some of the same contests year after year. Let me rephrase my question. What are some of the places you're going to go and grab lunch or dinner at year after year that you really like their food that you're going to go back to?
Probably some really good Mexican restaurants because we generally have Mexican on Friday. But as far as the best food I've ever had at a contest, we did a potluck down at Pig Jig site back 4 years ago, and we cooked some 3.5-pound tomahawk ribeyes, and those 3 steaks fed 60 people.
Really?
Yes, and it was the most amazing experience I'd ever had in my life. Jack Fallon cooked them for us, and we seared them at 600 degrees for about 20 minutes and then put them into the back of the cooker. It still took another hour to get them to a medium rare.
Wow.
Because they were that thick, and oh my God, it was amazing.
That sounds very, very good. Those were. It's hard to beat a good tomahawk. Were they Wagyu?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the butcher shop is, you know, I know that's where you ship your meat from and get your meat, right?
I tell you what, it's a darn good thing I don't live close to them because, you know, I go through there and pick up 90% of my meat, and every time I come home, I bring home some great stuff, and it is so fun to play with it at the house and cook.
Well, every time we go to Florida on vacation ourselves, we're the same way. We pick up stuff from Kevin, and I have people that come from that way all the time that bring me stuff, and of course, Kevin will ship me surprise boxes sometimes.
Well, you know, I came home the other day and opened my cooler, and there was a surprise in the cooler. Eldon had loaded coolers and had no idea, and got home and had Denver steaks and flank steaks.
It's hard to beat a good Denver steak, man.
Yes, it
That's
is.
an excellent, excellent cut of beef. You know, going back to barbecue season, how's the comp season going so far for you this year?
This year, we've started off pretty well. Came out, started down in Florida in January, had some good comps. We've been real consistent with a lot of top 5s overalls. And up until this week, we were running number 1. But Urkel passed us when he left North Carolina and went to Connecticut on Sunday morning and
Pulled away.
cooked up there and managed to ease in front of us. I mean, it's early in the year. It doesn't really matter at this point. But
Well, until you get to September,
That's right.
October,
that's
that's
right.
when the bar is really set. We all know it.
Yeah, I mean, right now it doesn't really matter because, I mean, people are just now starting to drop comps, and some are still adding to. But it's fun to see your name at the top of the categories and the list because I'd never been there before.
It is. It's a feeling like no other. I'll say that. That year I went on a tear for KCBS and MBN. I would have given anything if I could have I won the MBN team of the year. I could have given anything to double up on both of them and cook a short amount of contests because I won 5 grands out of 10 KCBS I cooked, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I had a 50% batting average there. So
That was in 19 when we were up in Murfreesboro.
Yeah, that 19 was a hell of a year.
Yes, it
I
was.
mean, well, I say that, you know, 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, all those were good years for me.
But 19 was phenomenal.
Yeah, 19 was a good year winning that contest.
We had a great time up there.
Are y'all coming back to Murfreesboro?
I don't know. I haven't gotten my schedule that far into it yet.
You'll have to just see wherever the cards fall.
Right.
I always like to ask, what do you have a favorite contest every year that you look forward to, or maybe more than one? But
Yeah, there's more than one. Murfreesboro is one I always want to go back to.
yeah,
The fact that the last time I was up there, I got to sit for 2 hours and talk to Mr. Pat Burke. I mean, he is just one of my heroes.
yeah,
and there's so much wealth of knowledge within him. You know, the fact that he made 42 straight hog finals cooking on a cinder block pit, that'll never be done again.
No, it won't. It won't.
And that's just a cool contest, and the fact that we got some of those big first place apples sitting on the house, anytime you can add to those, that's cool. I also enjoy Galax. That's one I look forward to every June.
I'm coming.
Good deal.
I'm rolling out. You heard me say it here.
Good
July.
Deal. We'll have fun.
I'm going. Rib only. I'm going. Sit in the parking lot in that Yeti chair and have a cold beer, and we're going to cook some ribs in Virginia. I told everybody I was going to come, and I'm not going back out. I'm going to roll.
You know, I just love going up there. You know, end of June, it's upper 70s. You can't ask for better weather. The crowds are huge. It's a huge economic impact for the town. And, you know, I sat there last year just behind the trailer in that vacant lot, and there was 20 people picking and playing music behind me, and one would quit and another one jump in the circle. And it was just fun just sitting there listening to them play.
It was. It's a great small town. Everybody in town takes a part in it some kind of way. And even, did you go in the little cafe that has breakfast and they stay open 24 hours a day? It's got one bar in it, like an old school.
Yeah.
The burgers are still like, what, $1.50 a piece or some ridiculous amount.
And the griddle's about as dark and seasoned as you could ever.
I don't know if the griddle's ever been cut off. It runs continuously. It gets cut up and down, but I know an egg sandwich was $1.25. The last time I was there.
Eggs have gone up.
Well, eggs have gone up. You're exactly right.
But as far as KCBS, one of mine is Greenwood in July.
Greenwood,
Greenwood, South Carolina, Festival Discovery.
I've always heard great things about that contest.
It's 90 teams. The whole town shuts down the downtown area. They have put in all the infrastructure for it. You can walk to everywhere. The crowds are huge. There's 30,000 people wandering through.
Wow.
The money's good.
Never been to that one.
And it is just a fantastic contest.
Maybe we'll make it up there one of these days, and that does sound, that's a big.
I've never cooked any contest over.
In South Carolina, I hadn't been to South Carolina and cooked, or North Carolina. No. Maybe one of these days, for sure. Well, you know, talking about cooking, what's your favorite category to cook?
I love brisket. The fact that I'm good at it just helps out, but I love cooking brisket. 3 years, if I can't cook chicken, I pretty well like chicken now, too.
You know, them chicken legs will change you, man, Cary.
Yes, they will.
They will change you, man. You're one of the ones that honestly listened about chicken legs, and still.
It was that contest at Murfreesboro when you won 80 chicken that day, and I had come over and tried yours. You said you liked my flavor better, but your texture was so phenomenal. And once I learned what that texture needed to be in my mouth, it didn't take me long to figure them out.
That's right. Everybody said my chicken recipe didn't quit hitting. I said, well, I'm going to cook it. I'm going to show y'all. I remember shouting that to somebody. I'm not going to call their name. That was pretty funny. Well, what category gives you the most fits?
Up until this year, for the last year and a half, it had been ribs. Kind of have gotten that turned around this year. We've had some wins in ribs and done really well. And up until this week, we were leading rib category, and we're still pretty close. So really happy with where I'm at with ribs right now. So now the one thing that I'm struggling a little bit with is pork.
You know.
And that's after being so strong for so long, I never thought about it.
Well, pork's always I think that afterthought of the contest. It's the one that don't get the most attention. You're worried about that $200 cut of beef. You're worried about that delicate rib. You're worried about nailing your chicken first out of the gate because you got to get a good chicken score to get in the hunt.
Well, the chicken only needs to be good because it's not going to hurt you, because a 175 can be 15th in chicken. And as long as you're 173, 174, 175 in chicken, you're fine.
That's right.
Because these days it takes a 177 damn near to place in chicken.
That's, you're right. I used to base mine on 173 was a target number.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. It's moved up.
I was 176 the other day and was 14th.
Wow.
In an 85 team field.
Well, I mean, that's respectable though. That big of a field. I mean, to be 14th and it be that close. I mean, that's respectable. We see scores at Memphis in May. That's why they added another decimal point or another number on the decimal point, because you would see so many ties. It'd be 6, 7 ties, 4, 5 ties, 2, 3 ties.
That was bad. You
know, and having to rank them out, and that's kind of, you add that other number in there, it does kind of fix that situation. to kind of alleviate some of the ties. Well, what have you done to try to combat pork? Talking about that, are you going back to some of your roots, or are you just?
Actually, I was looking back through notes last week, and I made one little slight change. I thought pork was good last week. The table I hit, I couldn't help, but I thought the pork was really good, so we're going to rerun that.
Yeah.
It's back to what I was running last year when I 180'd South Haven.
Yeah. Well, I think now pork turned into mostly all money muscle and
Pretty
a little
much.
bit of bacon or
pulled tubes.
pulled tubes. I mean, and that's a lot easier than what it used to be for me, right? I mean, we used to do all those tubes and plugs and cook all this and that.
I think it's funny how it changes,
it
like
is-
through the years.
Oh, yeah.
It's
just like,
changed so much.
Well, as they change the rules and you don't have to cook as much. And, Brad Leininger shows up at a contest he flies into with eight money mussels in a bag in his carry-on.
And goes and finds ribs and
Yeah.
and chicken, pork somewhere.
Yeah.
not pork.
Brings a brisket flat and 8 money mussels.
And goes and finds ribs somewhere and chicken. I mean, nothing wrong with that. I think a man that can cook out of a bus tub and a cooler is pretty deadly.
Yeah.
Once he dials his stuff in. And you take away the big trailers, and I have a nice trailer, you have a nice trailer, but you take all that out of the way and you give a man one cooker, tell him that's all he have, and you give him a knife roll and the seasons, and that's all, and I guarantee you'll figure it out.
Look at Drew with Razor Axe. One damn drum and steel grand's a thing.
Yeah.
We cooked Lake Wells, Florida this year, on the verge of not having enough teams. So Teddy Camp, which was Darren Worth and Jeff Vanderline and them, they split up. They borrowed a Traeger from Chad. We gave...
Well, Jeff broke off and done it right.
Yeah, Jeff went off and cooked separate on the Traeger. He took a collar off a People's Choice money muscle. We had a cold rack of ribs that we gave him. He went to the store and bought 10 or 12 pieces of chicken, and he wound up winning ribs with that one damn rack. Oh, he cooked a brisket point that he borrowed from Uncle Toad. Was third in pork, I think maybe 9th or 10th in chicken, and finished third overall.
He called me after that. He sure did. I remember he said, "You're not going to believe what I did."
Well, we were in the trailer that night making up injections for him because he didn't have anything. Because Darren had brought everything and just brought what he needed, and he didn't have anything, so we went through your box of stuff and we fixed him up.
Well, he uses that injection himself. He'll tell you he's been using my pork injection for several years.
Well, he said I ran a different ratio, but he said it was pretty darn good.
He's a hell of a guy.
Oh, he is.
Hell of a guy. Well, talking about the category that gives you the most trouble and the one you've had the most success with, and talking about the averages and all that, what nowadays, from when you started cooking to now, Candace was talking about it's changed so much. What are some of the biggest changes, I guess, pros and cons of the changes so far with everything?
The sheer volume of what we cook is so much less now. Coming from GBA and MBN side, where we cooked 8 butts for a contest, a minimum of 12 racks of ribs.
No, we 16, 9 shoulders over here.
Well,
There'd be so much meat
16
left over.
racks.
but you had so much that you cooked, and you had so much to process on the cutting table. Now I'm cooking 4 collars. I cooked 3 racks of ribs, 12 pieces of chicken, and a brisket flat.
3 racks of ribs, you said? I mean, I think you did a lot better.
And a brisket point, when my wife says, I want some burnt ends, bring them home, and I'll cook one.
I finally, I hate to even say this, I had a couple, 3 brisket points get ruined, or 4 get ruined. The ones I had cut off and saved and vacuum sealed. I guess the vacuum broke. It wasn't sealed good enough, and
That's
I noticed they were
terrible.
freezer burnt, and I was like, oh, no. And, went to rotating stuff and getting it to the top, and I was like, oh, no. I had to make room for more ribs. I'm loading up, getting practicing for Memphis.
Right.
Everybody always makes a lot of fun of me cooking.
I've got one freezer full of ribs at the house.
I mean, it don't take long. It don't take long at all.
We have
What?
4 freezers at home, just in case you were wondering.
I'm at 3.
Well, so my question, what are some of the pros and cons or plus and minuses, whatever you want to look at, of everything you've seen change from then till now?
Well, the cost of meats have gone up so much. The fact that I can cook a little less week after week helps. I feel like the less I cook, the more attention I pay to it, and the better my end product is. just knocking off one rack of ribs. You know, you got 30 minutes to process 4 racks and get a box built. You know, you take away one rack, you just saved 5 minutes in your process.
That's a good way to look at it.
So, you know, that is one of the biggest changes for me. That and going from when I started cooking everything low and slow to now where I'm cooking hot and fast.
Ain't nothing like that hot and fast, is it?
It isn't. You know, that Outlaw hums, it likes 300, 350 real easy.
It love it. It loves it. Loves it. What is the biggest misconception about competition barbecue, do you think?
That you have to stay up all night cooking stuff low and slow. You know, when we do classes at Rec Tech Academy, you get so many people coming in, and they're cooking pork butts 16, 20, 28 hours. I mean,
all them people cooking them 6-hour ribs, ain't they? 3, 2, 1, 3,
Yeah.
2, 1.
And, you know, my ribs are done in 2 hours and 50 minutes to 3 hours and 10 minutes. And then they're going into Cambro resting. And I can guarantee you I'm putting a good one out there.
Yeah. What's the craziest thing that has ever happened to you since traveling and cooking across the country?
Capital City Cook-Off, Montgomery, Alabama. 3 years ago, we were down there by the train depot. I had just trimmed. This was when I was still working, so I never got to a contest with anything trimmed, and I'd always trim when I got there. Just trimmed my brisket and separated the point and flat, put them in a pan. Bobby Stanfield from B&S came by the trailer and said, come help me with something. Didn't think a thing about it. Rocco was in his bed in the front corner of the trailer asleep, and I come back, and the brisket flat is laying in the floor between his front legs, and there's about that much of that flat left. And I wound up going to Walmart and cooking a $34 choice after that dog just ate $190 A9 and got 16th place with it.
I bet, I guess, is Rocco with you this weekend?
No. He passed away.
Yeah, that was.
That's right. That's right.
But, you know, the funny thing, that evening, Myron came up and hugged my neck, and he says, you know what? He says, don't be mad at the dog. He's just doing what a dog does and eats.
Well, that's exactly what I was sitting here thinking. You couldn't be mad at him.
No, and Sunday when I came home, he came bounding through the door. Melissa said, you know, I'm really kind of glad to see him. I didn't think he was coming home.
Well, talking about that, what's your proudest moment in barbecue so far?
There's a couple of them. One was winning my brisket at Murfreesboro, getting the apple, my 4th place hog at the pig jig, and my first KCBS Grand in Franklin, North Carolina.
A man never forgets his first grand championship.
No.
So are you going back to that contest?
Yeah, it's no longer.
No longer.
It's gone away.
Man. But if it was here.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I go to Murfreesboro. I'd had so many reserves on the KCBS side, doing other things and all that. Murfreesboro was actually my first grand championship in 2013.
Well, I'd had other grands, but that was the first one in KCBS, and it took me 43 to get them.
43. Wow. I'm going to say I was probably the same.
Well,
30, I don't know.
a funny stat that came up, 44 is the average in KCBS.
Really? Mm-hmm. Now, you just told me something I didn't know.
Childs and I were talking about that, I don't know, last year, year before last, and he said when you go through all the stats and run the numbers, 44 is the average for the first grand.
Boy, Charles is intelligent as they come. Very, very knowledgeable guy.
He is good with data and numbers.
Man, he's meticulous when it comes to recipes.
He is a professor in the cook trailer.
Yes.
And the science behind everything.
Yes. Yes, you're right. He's a great guy. He took a class from me years ago, and he's still running the same brisket recipe and stays in the top.
Well, he came up to me, I guess it was last year we were at a contest. He says, you having trouble with your brisket? And I said, no. He says, man, I can't get it done. I said, Childs, you're at sea level. It's different when you're up north and cooking at elevation. You're at sea level. Son of a bitch got first and I got second.
You know what? And you're talking about sea level and all that. Every year when we go to Galax, Virginia, it took me, how many years did I say?
Alter your cook times there.
You got to cook it a little longer.
It took me a couple of years to figure Galax out because you get up in that elevation, things are not the same.
Nope. It ain't. You staring at the clouds right in your face when you get up on top of Galax.
Well, the thing of it is, it just finishes sooner at a lower temp. And, 2 years ago, I wasn't even close to thinking about checking my brisket, and I went and checked it, and hell, it was overcooked.
Yeah, it don't take long.
And I just had to set it out and let it cool
Did you
down.
ice bath it real fast?
No, I just set it on the counter.
Talking about that, have you ever had to shock a brisket or a
Well,
pork butt?
I have shocked money muscles. I had one that got away, pulled at 216. It just mushed. We threw it in a cooler and then heated it back up. We pulled a 6th place out of 70 teams.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't understand just because you've overcooked something, you can save it.
You can fix it.
You got a few
Sometimes-
minutes if you know what
yeah,
you're
if you
doing,
got
but you got to
time.
have stuff cleared out, ready to go.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I like rest on my meats, because it gives me time to let stuff relax and come back, and gives me time to fix some errors if something does happen.
Well, you know, if you take the fine dining approach, and you know, when you cook a steak, you don't just throw it on a plate right off the grill or whatever you're cooking on out of a skillet. You need to let it rest after you cook it for a good 5 to 8 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you've allowed those juices and everything, those muscles to kind of relax and suck back in the juice that it kind of pushes out because it's so hot, right? Mm-hmm. And the same way with those big cuts of meat, but when you overcook them, you just need to stop it. Don't let it keep going. So getting it in that ice bath is crucial. And I've saved ribs before, sticking them in top of a cooler.
Oh, I've held them to the air conditioner in the trailer.
Oh, yeah, we've done it all.
I like the stories. Do you have any of the stories where you're like, this is garbage. I'm ashamed to turn this in. And then you're shocked by what you end up with?
Yes,
I have one of those for him, and he knows what I'm talking about.
I had a chicken box the other day that I was absolutely ashamed of.
And you ended up doing well with it, or a lot better than you thought?
Yeah, we scored a 176 with it.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
I think we were 4th with it. I knew it ate well, but it was the ugliest damn chicken I'd ever cooked. It was blotchy. I had skin problems. I don't know what happened, but it ate good. I said, we're going to be okay. I might take some 8s in appearance. I got all 9s in appearance for one judge, and he gave me an 877. And, but yeah, we scored a 176 with it, and we were 3rd or 4th in chicken.
Can't complain about that.
I know what you're going to say. You're going to talk about South Haven Spring Fest.
Mm-hmm. Brisket.
Yep. Cary, I was cutting this thing. It was crumbling, and you know how I cut. I hold it. My fingers are so wide because I've got it trimmed to fit the box to keep it from going, and it keeps crumbling on me. And about halfway through the brisket, I just stop and go. It had a fat vein in the middle, and I said, forget it. I'm not turning it in. I'm done. And
left
I
out
walked
of the
out
trailer.
of the trailer and left it sitting on the counter. She finished cutting and boxed it up, and we got a perfect score.
True story.
That's a true story. Hey, you know what? We got 2 180s that contest, and that brisket was one of them.
Well, I had one time that, brisket just flat tightened up on me. I mean, it was tough as shoe leather.
That happened in a heartbeat.
And I turned in a whole box of burnt ends. It was either 8 or, I think it was 16 burnt ends in a box. We managed a 7th place in brisket with it that day.
If you've got a burnt end that is, tender but not overdone, still has a little bit of chew in it, and it's not real stringy, you've kind of got the right thickness you want and all that, and you've got a good, sweet, savory blended sauce on it, you ain't got to send in no slices. A good barbecue judge is going to want those burnt ends, and they will score well. There's a lot of people that's pulled that move and turned in burnt ends.
Happens all the time. But, so many contests anymore, I don't even cook a point because I've gotten so consistent and so good with my flat. And I don't want to give those judges a chance to knock me down on my fat.
A lot of people do that, though. A lot of people don't want to take that chance.
Because in these Wagyu points, there's so much fat, and by the time you get it all rendered down, some judges just knock you in the dirt with it.
Well, at one point, I was trying to buy prime points.
Well,
and cook Wagyu flats.
See, the restaurant guys can do that. They bring them. But I don't have that option, and I can't afford that.
No, you got to hook up with the right restaurant. So a couple more questions or a few more. For the ones that don't know, you bought my barbecue trailer.
I do.
So I thought I'd have to ask, how many people come up to that trailer before you took the wrap off and put your wrap on and wanted to talk to you or anything like that?
The first couple of months, it was a bunch. I'd get knocks on the door. Is Heath here? Can I talk to him? Or, that kind of thing. And some of it was judges, and some were just fans from your channels and stuff. And then not so much the last few months, but the biggest thing was everybody was giving me a hard time about, oh, there's Heath. But,
You don't know how many messages I got here
oh, I bet.
from our social media team, and they were going, "Did you go to North Carolina this weekend? Was you in Georgia? Was you in Florida?" And I'm like, "No, we sold that trailer. Cary has it." Oh, that was a good one.
But how do you like the new wrap job?
Your wrap looks really, really good. Really good. Really good.
You know, it took me a while to get everything together that I wanted, but I think it came together great.
Me and Candace were talking about your wrap the other day. I showed it to her online. I think it comes together very good. Mm-hmm. It did. I really like the theme and the smoke that it went. It looks very natural.
You know, I love that digital smoke that you had on it. I could not find that anywhere because I was going to use that same background. I could not find it.
Yeah.
And never could get that guy to call me back to get the code number on or anything else. And
Don't even get me started.
I just started looking, and that's actually a fog. It's not a smoke.
Really?
Yes.
I'll be. Well, what? Who would you say that you look up to in the barbecue world?
Pat Burke, you.
Thank you.
Darren Worth has helped me along the way. Jim Berg's another one, being able to cook with him. There's been a lot of good people that's helped me coming along, and very grateful for everything they've done, passed along knowledge, and I try to do the same on my end.
I mean, I'm so giving with information. I try to be. I appreciate you for including me in such a wonderful group of gentlemen there, because there's that's some good company to be included in at such a young age. I say young age, hell, I'm 44 now. But to be included in that group of guys, I really appreciate that, Cary.
Well, last year, at Murfreesboro, Darren and Sherry were parked right behind me. And when I first got started, we were down at the Sonny's Invitational in Ocala, Florida. And that was the year Darren had won King of the Smokers, the Jack, the Royal, and everything else.
Was I there at that one?
Probably. It was there at the zoo.
Yes, I was there.
And
see, everybody got sick from the what did they give out for a wild card cook or whatever?
Oh, it was tri-tip.
No, it was some kind of fish.
No, that year it was tri-tip.
Was it tri-tip? Mm-hmm. I'm thinking about another year that everybody got sick then.
But anyway, I had gone to Darren and talked to him that morning, and I said, "You cook from one end of the country to the other, north to south, east to west." I said, "How do you tweak your flavors based on where you're at?" And he says, "I don't." He says, "I'm going to beat you with tenderness day in and day out." And
I used to tell you the same thing, didn't I?
Well, but for a new cook, that was really important. And, when we were in Murfreesboro, Darren and Sherry were parked right behind us. And I went over and I said, I just want to tell you thank you for advice you gave me when I was getting started. And he says, it's still true today. And, when we were standing there with the awards at the trailer after you just double granded, Darren came up and hugged my neck and leaned up to my ear and said, "You beat me at my own damn game today." And that's one of my coolest stories ever.
He's given me some kudos before, and I'm gonna tell you, Darren's a hell of a cook, man.
Yes,
that's the GOAT right there. I mean, he don't get the recognition he deserves because he don't care.
Yeah, he's
what I mean. He's not
that,
trying to do anything.
Well, he set me down last year in Florida. Had no clue. He says, "When you get a chance, come see me." Friday afternoon, I'll wander over, and we sat down out there beside the Jambo. He says, "I've been looking at your numbers." He says, "Your chicken's on point." He says, "You're averaging almost 175. You're cracking 180s." He says, "Whatever you're doing, just leave it alone." He says, "But there's something in your brisket. You're getting lots of firsts and lots of 180s, but you'll back it up with a 166 or 168. And he says, you're too damn good a cook to be missing texture that much." He says, "There's something in your flavor profile that's offending some judges." And I went back and kind of reformulated it and pulled one out and added one product. And last year I averaged like 174. He says, "That's where you want to be." He says, "You hit the right tables, you're going to pick those first places off. You're going to get some 180s, but you don't have the big swings in the scores."
That's right. It's all about consistency is the key.
Best middle of the road barbecue you can make.
That's it. And one thing that always stuck in my head, Tuffy Stone said something one time. Your food has got to eat well cold.
Exactly.
If it's gonna be good hot, everybody's is.
Mm-hmm.
But if your food will eat good cold, you can win that contest day in, day out.
The only meat that I think we ever get in
hot is chicken.
Hot is chicken. Because, I mean, it comes right off the grate into the box and into the window, and it's going to the tables.
I mean, I don't ever remember just judging and it thinking this meat's warm or this meat's hot. Besides, like, MBN on site, which is no more.
I've had some lukewarm ribs a couple of times.
Yeah, I'd say lukewarm, but never
brisket,
hot.
No. But for brisket and pork, never.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, and that's across all, like KCBS and NBN. Either way, I haven't ever.
Well, you almost have
had
to.
It hot.
And you may do it this way. I'm asking. You may or not want to say anything, but you almost had to overshoot that brisket to almost let it cool down to where it needs to be at. Because if you cook it just to the point of, you just got it's all in your resting, how your resting stage is.
It does.
Depends on how you rest. In a Cambro, not in a Cambro.
It depends on how you rest it and how long you rest it. Because, see, like with my brisket, I've only got an hour, anywhere from 55 to an hour and 15 minutes rest on it.
So you're going to overshoot it. What are you carrying your brisket to, 212, 215?
I start checking it at 210, and I never check it after that. Once the alarm goes off, then it's just a feel, and I really couldn't tell you where it finishes, but I would guess 212, 213.
I've seen some guys lately, and it's Mark Williams from Swine Life. You know Mark, right? Mm-hmm. He's been doing a lot of testing, and he's come a long way, in the last few years of looking into the scientific end of barbecue.
His beef rub's pretty damn good.
His beef rub is pretty damn good.
Playing with on steaks.
And I may be telling you this wrong, but he's got a theory about brisket. When it only climbs a degree in so many minutes, and then it waits and it takes longer than that to do it, it's done. And I can't remember what the minute climb is or whatever when it gets to a certain temp.
When it gets to a point that it's just kind of holding and the longer it holds there before it moves, you better be.
I can't remember.
You better be on top of it.
4 or 5 minutes, whatever it is, whatever the stage is, but it slows down enough that you can sit there and watch it on your timer, and you think that's it. No, it don't do that. It climbs a degree, so you set the timer again.
I had a brisket one time, and it was a snake river. This was back when I was starting, and dadgum thing got to like 192 and just didn't budge for 2 hours, and I'm getting kind of panicky, and I went ahead and opened it up to check it. Shit, it was done. I'd never guessed pulling a Wagyu brisket at 192, but I did that day.
I mean, depending on what temp you're cooking.
we were at elevation too.
Yeah, I mean, all that really matters. Well, the one thing when I ask you, did you have any, what'd you do outside of barbecue, this and that? Where's playing cards coming to mix? You didn't mention that.
I think I interrupted him when I asked about his team name. I didn't let him finish.
Well, back in 2010, I started playing poker pretty hot and heavy and did that up through 13, 14. I was paying all of our bills at home on my poker playing because I had just bought mom and dad out at the trucking company and I wasn't drawing a salary. So that was where I was making my money, and I was playing cards 3 and 4 nights a week, or every other weekend I was either going to Tunica, Biloxi, or Vegas, or Atlantic City to go play cards. Playing cards has been good for us. It's paid for a lot of things in our lives. Basement, paved driveway, my wife's horse, a couple of cook trailers. So
I mean, you can't beat that. I guess one of my last, I don't know. I'd have to follow that up with another question. So, I mean, what's your favorite casino to go play cards at out of all those destinations and cities?
Probably the one that I play at the most is the Beau Rivage in Biloxi. It's a 5.5 hour drive. I can be there, and they run some really good tournaments. And back in 2012, I won the $1 million heater down there, or finished 5th place in the $1 million heater down there. Had some good paydays, and it was really funny. My mom, you've met her.
Wonderful, wonderful woman.
She was not a fan of me playing cards. Thought it was the devil's work. And we were down there playing the $1 million heater, and I told her, I said, Mom, I need you to go to the office and cover for me tomorrow morning. I'm not going to be home because I'm going to be on the final table. And I said, you can follow it online and watch our progress and see what's happening. Told her where to go look, and she'd done a search. And at the time, I came up in the top 100 poker players in the world. And when I got home, she says, I never knew you were that good. She says, I don't guess I have to worry about you.
Well, I mean, me and Candace have been to the casino with you before, and you are a really good card player. I got to give it to you. You are. And, I love playing cards too. and Candace knows what I'm about to say. I'm a huge baccarat player. I love that. Candace likes it too.
We haven't played that in a
We
long
haven't
time,
played it in a
though.
long time. They used to have some tables at Tunica here. And
That casino's gone, though.
yeah, it was at the Grand there. And
That's Harris.
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 Yeah. Harris.
I like
I mean,
Harris.
in the day, that was the place to
Yeah.
go.
It was a good casino.
It was great.
I feel sad when I go to Tunica now. I'll just leave it at that.
It is sad.
It's very different than what it used to be.
Gambling's not like it used to. It's kind of, you know what I mean, is it ruined it by putting it everywhere.
You just can't beat Vegas though.
You can.
Yeah, Vegas.
It's
Vegas-
different.
And not just for gambling, but I mean,
But
it's
Vegas,
just
you
everything.
have so many shows and great places for a foodie.
Oh,
Vegas
man, you
is
can
the
never
place to
go
go
everywhere. It's
oh
just
my
so
gosh,
much.
it is so much fun out in Vegas.
The one thing I haven't got to do because Heath will never go, but one day I'm going to make it to the Mob Museum. That's my thing.
I'd go.
We've done that downtown.
Have you done it?
Yeah.
Yeah. We usually stay downtown when we go, actually, and we'll make the venture over to the Strip, but
Yeah, we
prefer to stay downtown.
we
Versus the
generally
Strip.
stay on the Strip because we go out every couple of years for Melissa's veterinary conference.
Yeah.
And that was where I really learned my
Started.
poker 30 years ago. She had gone to class that morning. There was a seat open on a 7-card stud table. And I had sat down with $100 because back then my gambling budget was $100 a day. And she came back from class 9 hours later, and I cashed out. I had $104, and I had sat there and played all day, and I had been up as much as about 160 and down to about 55. And but that was where my card playing and playing poker started. Was back then 30 years ago.
Wow. I'd have to think back. I can't remember how much money I've actually won. It's not been a lot.
Probably nothing compared to Cary.
Nothing compared to Cary. I mean, I've won a few $1,000s, playing cards at a time. Now, I'm not a slot machine person where you win mega.
I'm not a slot person at all. But hell, that's a 10% advantage to the house right there before you ever start.
I'm not a big gambler, anyways. I did play baccarats with you, but
Yeah.
I just go to drink. I'm not gonna lie. I like to
I
drink.
love the shows.
Occasionally.
I like shows and all that.
And you generally get great meals. Matter of fact, I went to the steakhouse last night. Had a 22-ounce bone-in ribeye and mushrooms. Damn, it was good.
That makes me think. Did you go to the same steakhouse?
I did.
Did you get the calamari?
Did
No,
you get
I didn't.
God, that was
Because
so
I
good
can't have that on my diet now. It's just proteins. So I had to.
Remember the calamari
Yeah.
though? It had it was
Well,
an odd version of
Yeah.
it, but it was
calamari.
very
It was
good.
oysters.
We had
Oh, was it?
oysters
With blue cheese. Buffalo.
and
No.
Brussels sprouts.
Yes.
Brussels sprouts.
It
That's
was
right.
Did it
Brussels
not
sprouts,
have,
oysters, and blue cheese, and it was
Did it-
phenomenal.
Did it have no banana peppers? Maybe it's the Brussels sprouts.
Yeah, it was the
mistaken.
Brussels sprouts, blue cheese.
It was the blue cheese
on
though.
a fried
I was
oyster. and it
Gotcha. I was confused.
And it was freaking
I thought
phenomenal.
it was very, very, very good.
Wow. Well, talking about food, talking about cards, I just have one more question. If you had to choose between barbecue or playing cards, what would it be?
That's a good question.
My wife's gonna say cards right there.
Well, look, Cary, I appreciate you coming on today. And, it's been great talking to you and catching up. And let's go kick some tail this weekend at this contest down the road, all right?
Hey, I'm good with that.
Cheers, brother.
Have a good one.
We'll catch y'all next time on Shootin' the Q. We'll see y'all next week.
Thank you for tuning in to the Shootin' the Q podcast. If you have any comments or suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to reach out to us on our social media channels or through our website. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. Leave us a review if you enjoyed the show. Until next time, keep shooting the Q.